said, I'm glad to be here. This is Denise. Denise, how many know Denise?
This is my mom, Donna. So she was born and raised here, and I was too.
Yeah. Good. So we're going to just chat a little bit, and I don't know that that's going to help to close, and it might let people come in if you leave it open. And of course, some people might just barge in the front, and that's okay. You remember what we did out there? We're in the service. How does that go? Do you remember? We're going to do it later, so don't worry about it now. You get to think about it some more. But we're going to start with a little presentation that was made. We are old. We didn't used to be old, but we are now old. We have been with the mission for 36 years. So that does make us a little, it's been a while. And when you're with the mission 35, if you make 35, they give you this award, because 35 is a good year, I guess, or at least you've been at it for a while. It's called the Ed and Marion Baum Award. The name B-O-M-M, Baum. Those folks were missionaries in the Philippines back before World War II. And when World War II broke out, they were there and they stayed there. And it was an amazing thing. They went into the concentration camps and came out, really skinny and all this kind of stuff at the end. But they hung in there. And so the people, if you hang in there 35 years, then they give you this award, okay? We haven't gone through what the Baums went through, but we got the award. And so what we're going to do is show you that, because this is what they show. They showed it last summer, not this summer, but the one before. And they show it, to prove that you've been around for 35 years. So it's going to be, I wanted to get through that first song. I don't know how this is going to work. The sound is really low on this. So you're very nicely socially distanced. That's all good and everything. We'll just try to listen. You'll get to see the pictures whether you hear it well or not. And can you hear me talking okay?
Sure.
Okay. Hopefully you'll get it. But if you have any questions afterwards, let me know. But we're going to let them talk and have a good time. So I'm going to turn this front one and maybe these two off. Is that too dark? Anybody scared? Okay. And we'll try this. The sound isn't the greatest, but be patient.
Gill Thomas was born on Tuesday, February 24th, 1959, in Erie, Pennsylvania, 4 minutes after his twin sister, Gail. Their parents, LaRue and Audrey, had them in Bethel Baptist Church the very next Sunday. Gill and Gail grew up going to that church where they trusted Christ as Savior. All 7 of the siblings faithfully attended Bethel and trusted Christ at early ages. Working at Bethany Baptist Camp in western New York for 6 years created a desire in Gill to be involved in ministry full-time. After graduation, he went to Baptist Bible College in Clark Summit, Pennsylvania, now Clark Summit University, to prepare.
Denise Michelle Watson, the second of 6 children, was born to Richard and Donna Watson on June 4th, 1961, in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Her grandparents, known as Uncle Bill and Aunt Marion, were much-traveled evangelists and children's workers. Denise was led to the Lord at the age of 9 by her grandmother. At an early age, Denise had a desire to serve God, and for years thought she might take over her grandmother's ministry. During her first year at Cornerstone Baptist College, she committed herself to missions.
While Gill played his euphonium and sang with the Collegians Brass Quintet for BBC, God impressed on him the need for church planting. Since he knew he would be planting churches, he decided to major in missions. Gill became deeply affected by the Great Commission. He asked himself,
"Is there a reason I can't go overseas?"
he found no reason not to go, so consistent with the admonition, "You can't steer a parked car," Gill started down the path to becoming a foreign missionary, believing that God would prevent him from going if it was not his will. Gill spent his last 2 years in college serving as youth and music pastor in Binghamton, New York, and then spent 7 months as an interim pastor after he graduated.
Denise was pursuing a degree in Christian education at Cornerstone University when we met.
Gill's good friend from the brass quintet, John Rust, had challenged Gill to go to seminary, find yourself a wife, and then enter the Calvary Baptist School of Church Ministries internship, as if it was just that easy. Gill did go to the seminary, but determined that he would not hound the campus looking for a wife. Church is the place to find a wife, he thought.
So on January 9th, 1983, I was driving out of Calvary Baptist Church in Grand Rapids when I saw a car off the church driveway with a flat tire. I stopped to fix the tire and met Denise. 6 months later, we were married and began the internship.
At the beginning of the internship, John and Marilyn challenged us to consider theme church planting in Portugal.
We prayed about it for 10 months, and upon graduating from the internship, attended ABWE's candidate classes with 3-month-old Sarah Joy. God provided partners to pray for and support us from Florida, Michigan, and Pennsylvania.
In August 1986, with Sarah and Jonathan, we left for Portugal. Andrea was born in March of 1987, interrupting language school.
We enjoyed team church planting in several locations and leading the field team for 14 of those years as many churches were established and pastoral leadership developed. Although we've been gone now for 11 years, many Portuguese church members still remind us of the impact we had on their lives.
A former teammate states, they were very often the first to volunteer to go and meet a new need, giving up their personal goals for the good of the team. Gill led by example by pushing himself beyond the status quo and challenging others to try things beyond their imagined limits.
We had the opportunity of leading several joint church choirs for Christmases and Easters, and were involved in music ministry throughout our time in Portugal.
Gill also traveled around Europe during those years, serving ABWE field councils by training missionaries and local pastors. Gill also had the privilege of being involved in the Kusel, Germany meeting of ABWE missionaries in February 2005, out of which Good Soil and Essential Mission Components were born.
In 2008, we were asked to become the International Director of Good Soil Ministries with ABWE. Since then, we have trained thousands of missionaries and internationals on 6 continents, written and directed the development of several good soil resources, including Gaining Ground and Reflections, and encouraged the translation of good soil materials into 30 languages.
Gill also leads the team that designed and facilitates the Essential Mission Component courses for ABWE. No less important, we love being Papa and Nana to our 7 beautiful grandchildren, and loving parents to our children Sarah and Seth, Jonathan and Leah, and Andrea and Ben.
We are grateful to ABWE, who in July of 2019 recognized us for 35 years of service. We express our gratitude to God for His faithfulness and the people He has given us with whom to serve to make Jesus' name known among every people.
All right. So, there you have it. In 5 years. Do you have any questions about any of that stuff? Not that big a deal. But
Yes, it is.
Gil, was that baptism I think I was at? Is that
Which one?
possible? You were baptizing somebody on that
Oh, yeah?
half balcony in the church that we
yes,
went down.
yes. You were at that one, huh?
I think I may have been at that
Cool.
baptism, although possibly it was a different baptism.
Right.
that seemed-
There were a few, but yeah, cool. Yeah, that was the same spot at least. Yeah, good. All right. Well, we did. I think we can do that, and at least for now, I think that'll be all right. So, do you remember what was first? I get it. Right? Yeah. In Matthew, well, you know, the good soil, or I should say, the parable of the soils is found in Matthew 13. It's found, oh, sorry, that'll come later. I get it, then that's for me, and then I won't let go, right? And the parable's found in Matthew 13. And that's where Jesus says the good soil person understands. He gets it. That's why we say, I get it. It's like, you know, we've been making puzzles there at the house, right? And so the one has 500 pieces, and you're trying to figure out. And I was working on this one piece. I could not find it. I finished the puzzle. On the box, there's an X in this one spot, and that means that piece isn't there. But, and I was just struggling, but anyways, we got it done. But this word actually, to understand or to get it, means to be able to put the pieces of a puzzle together and really get it, really understand. And that's what we want. You know, I've shared the gospel. Many of you may have shared the gospel, and you know, the person's looking at you, and you're like, are we getting through, right? That's a tough thing. This means the good soul person really does get it. And that's what we want. We want people to understand the gospel so that then they will embrace it, right? In Mark, it's kind of a weird thing, but it's the same parable, and Jesus is explaining it. But when he explains it, he says the good soil person, he doesn't say understands. He says embraces the gospel. So we get our theology from that. It's not only they get it, but then they embrace it. That's what we want. And they also say they won't let go. It's the retain. In Luke chapter 8, it says that the good soil person retains, hangs on to. And a good soil person, when they trust Christ as Savior and they continue to, you'll see them here in church, right? They become part of the body. That's really what we want in the end. We don't want a bunch of decisions and then where are they type of thing. So that's what it's all about. 2 Timothy 2:2. Does anybody know how that verse goes? Huh? The things you've heard from me.
Faithful men.
Yeah.
Teach others also.
We're going to entrust in faithful men who then will, or people who will entrust in others as well. It's all about teaching and training and discipling. And there's really 4 generations in there. The inside is Paul, and it is a little dark now, so I'll do that. Paul is writing, he says to Timothy, I want you to entrust to other people. And it does say faithful men, but the term in the New Testament there is applicable to women, okay? So it's men and women, other people. He wanted Timothy to give it to reliable people who then would share it with others as well. It's like the growing thing here with these circles. Well, we can apply that to ourselves. We could be in the middle. We have to share with our family and friends, who will share with their friends, who will continue to share with their other friends. That's what we encourage people to do. Now, what's interesting, and I'd like to change that a little bit, I want to put this up here. This is our purpose statement, Good Soil, to motivate, train, and resource people, we'll call them people for now, in worldview relevant evangelism and discipleship. That's a big phrase there at the end with all those words. Worldview relevant. What is that? Well, remember out in the service, we had those ladders, and it said starting with the known or the language, right? Well, imagine you were a missionary and you went to a place, like when you went to Portugal. We couldn't talk to people, right? We had to learn Portuguese. But once we learned Portuguese, then we had that common language. There was something that we could use, right? But if all you had was a language, remember those ladders, and they don't know who God is, they don't know who Jesus is, and we have to get there somehow, right? So we start with that language, and these people, we're turning them into, we'll call that, in the center now is ABW missionaries. Why does Good Soil exist? We wanted to share with our ABW missionaries. We want them to be able to communicate clearly so people will get it and embrace and hang on to the gospel. That was our purpose, right? So we have them in the middle. But if we continue to have these expanding circles, we also train our international partners, people that are out there with whom we work, but that also are sharing the gospel, right? It's not just for Americans to do, but it's our international partners. But we also want our ABWE constituency to be able to do these kind of things, and that's you. We came here, do you remember the year, Ken? What was it that we did some Good Soil training here? It's right in this room.
Yeah, so six years ago maybe?
Probably. It's a long time ago, isn't it? But we want our people that work with us and support us and all to be able to know these things and use them, and then other people as well. So that thing all kind of expands out. But when we're talking about motivate, we're talking about motivating and training and resourcing people, those people that's expanded out. What does that all mean? Well, motivating, how do we do that? We do it, first of all, through our website. Well, this is actually not our website. What is this? It's Facebook, right? We have a Facebook site, and we use it pretty extensively, a lot of times sending out different messages and stuff, and it helps to motivate people. Maybe you're not on there, you have to like us, right? I love these terms, right? Are we friends? Do you like me? Okay. But if you will go to Good Soil Evangelism and Discipleship and like us, then you will get our, whatever you call them. What do you call those things? Posts. There you go. See, there's another good word, right? So that's one way we do it. We also do it through Cultivate blog, where we're putting up articles all the time, really quite often. A lot of stuff already on there, as well as in conferences, many seminars in churches and all that kind of stuff. We're out there and we want to help motivate people to be sharing the gospel effectively. The next piece is training, and we're going to watch a little bit of a thing. We won't watch the whole thing. This is going to be a lot louder. But I want you to just see what the training's like. So watch this for a little bit. See if for now. It looks pretty boring, doesn't it? Or not, maybe. Excuse me, it's a lot different than what we're sometimes used to when we're talking about seminars and things like that. But put this picture up here is one of our images as we walk through the Bible. But if you read this with me, okay, is it big enough to read? Can you see that? Let's read that together. Mark 3:14. And he appointed 12, whom he also named apostles, so that they might be with him and might send them out to preach. It's talking about Jesus. Notice it says they might be with him. We kind of run over that sometimes. He was going to send them out to preach. There it is. That's send them out to preach. That's the big thing, right? But what Jesus wanted to make sure is that they were with him. That's significant. He was able to change their lives, not because they could go out and preach eventually, but because they spent time with Jesus. That's significant. That's what discipleship is all about. And what I love, and that was 3:14 in Mark, Acts 4:13. Now, that's the numbers aren't inspired, but it's pretty interesting to me. They recognize, this is now people recognizing that Peter and John had been with Jesus. That's just like the other verse. Jesus wanted them to spend time with them, and they saw it. People recognize it, changed their lives. And Jesus really is all about changing lives. That's what it is. That's why people need to understand. You can't just share the gospel and hope they get it. We want them to get it so that then they will embrace it and hang on to it. And their lives are changed. He changes lives. He changes government officials into God adorers. Do you know who is this, by the way? Who's it about? Philip and that Ethiopian eunuch, right? Good. He changes picky, leering legalists into passionate, loving leaders. Who's that? Yeah, Saul on the road to Damascus. He transformed rugged, commanding soldiers into reverent Christian servants. Who's that? It's Cornelius. Yeah, powerful stuff. I mean, what did we just do? 3 or 4 stories, but those stories are amazing. Changed delirious pagans into disciples and pupils. This one might be harder. You know what story this is? It's Paul and Barnabas, or I should say Barnabas and Saul, in Lystra. They walk into this town, and Paul sees this guy who's crippled on the ground, and he sees faith in his eyes. So he says, "Stand up and walk." And he jumps up and he's walking around and he's healed. And the people say, they're back. I won't go into the whole story, but they believed that Zeus and Hermes in this town, there weren't believers. They thought Zeus and Hermes had visited years earlier. And of course, in that story, they wipe out the valley because only one old couple accepted Zeus and Hermes into their home and gave them food, And so they wipe out the whole place. Now, these people, Barnabas and Saul, come in and this guy's healed. They think they're back. These God-like people are back. And so they wanted to worship him. They brought the cows to slaughter and stuff. They were going to worship him. Of course, he says, no. And it's a great story in Lystra. Well, going on, he changes magicians and seekers of gain into members and servants of God. What story is this one? So another one might be a little harder. What? Okay. Did you say Ephesus?
I said Magnus at the time.
Oh, okay. Well, that was a little before this, but that would have been a good one as well. But the temple in the back, don't know why you didn't recognize it, just kidding, is Temple of Diana. It was the biggest place in the known world at the time. It was a massive temple. And, of course, people are getting saved and they're doing away with the magic things that they came and burned them and everything. That was in Ephesus. Anyways, down through the ages, God, Jesus, is changing lives. Now this, I don't know if you're going to recognize all these people. You know who this is? That's Francis Schaeffer, a theologian and philosopher. This is Amy Carmichael, missionary in Asia for a long time. How's that?
Moody?
Yeah, Moody. How about these two? Adoniram Judson and his wife. And the artistry is very good. They look just like him. How about this guy? You know who he is? Okay, how about him? These two have the same name. Same last name. This is Lot Carey. Lot Carey is the first black American to go as a missionary to Liberia years and years ago. It's a fascinating story. So if that's Lot Carey, then this must be William Carey, Wesley, these two, Luther and Catarina. Martin Luther, and of course after he trusted Christ, he went and got married because he was allowed, right? She used to be a nun, by the way. This one is, you're not going to recognize him, but von Zinzendorf of the Moravians. Early senders of missionaries in modern times. You look at him and say, modern? Yeah, but anyways, down through the ages, Jesus is changing lives. Is he, whoops, I'm hitting the wrong button. You think he's still changing lives today? He is. He really is, even though we've got a totally different landscape. I want to look at Revelation 5:9 for just a moment. And again, if you could read with me, I'd appreciate it. After Revelation 5:9, begin. And they sang a new song, saying, "Worthy are you to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slain, and by your blood you ransomed people for God from every tribe and language and people and nation." God doesn't lie, right? And he says he's going to have people from every tribe and language and people and nation, and some of those are still today, right? And he is changing lives. We'll look at just a few of these. This fellow here says, a biker snake owner finds lasting joy. This guy, his name's Bill. I guess maybe you can just change it a little bit by bit. Do you feel confident in that? All right, it's okay. Bill Arter is a guy, we'll go ahead and put the next one up. He came to our church with his wife. His wife was a nominal Christian, had trusted Christ years and years before, and wanted him to come to church, so he came to church, and we met him. And so I found out early on that he wasn't a believer, and so I started to study with him. And this actually talked about who God is. God is all-powerful, he's a mighty creator, and that his crowning piece of creation is who? Humankind, or man, right? But man sinned, turned away from God, chose his own way. And because of that, death came. Separation from God. Physically, spiritually, eternally. But God sent his son, Jesus. He died on the cross, he rose again, he conquered sin and death. And so if we would have faith in him, we could have life. Shared a study that went through that. What I just did was really quickly the chronological bridge to life. God, man, sin, death, Christ, cross, faith, life. And we walked through that with him. He trusted Christ as Savior. You're going to put the next picture up. And changed his life. In fact, his wife died, and it was a struggle for him, but he was trusting in Christ. And I said we baptized him, and got to baptize his new wife after his other wife died. And so it's just a kind of exciting story. He was a biker, he had tattoos all over. I mean, he and I are like same. We're the same, right? He has a snake, massive snake in his house, keeps it. takes it outside sometimes. I'm thinking, what are you doing? But he's never lost it. But this is, you wouldn't think that he and I were buddies. In fact, he used to say to me, I'm just amazed that you would be my friend. But that's the way it was. And of course, it was Jesus that made the difference in his life. So that's in where we are right there, and I was able to baptize in our local church. Anyways, an agnostic finds true life meaning in life. The guy on the right is Pastor Brian Gabert. He's actually the pastor of our sending church down in Florida. And we did some training in his church, and he really liked it, and he started to use it. But this guy beside him, go ahead and do the next picture. Brian coaches Little League with his kids, and this other guy has his kids there, and they coach together. And he's, oh, you're a pastor, and what's that mean, and all that kind of stuff. And he didn't believe in God, but they started talking, and one day he said, if you'd like to know more, I got this study. It's called The Story of Hope. I walked through it with you. Yeah, sure, whatever. So they started meeting together, and they walked through that thing, and God changed his life. His name's Steve. Go ahead and show the last one. And this actual study on the table there is called The Way to Joy. Steve went through the whole Bible basically in a mini Bible. You remember those ladders? The Story of Hope takes somebody from Genesis right through to Revelation, but it doesn't cover everything. It's some steps along the way that are key that will help somebody get it. That's the concept of the Story of Hope. And you don't just use the little book, the Story of Hope. You use the Bible, and the Story of Hope walks you through and helps you to see that. Well, same thing with Steve. He walked through that, and then when he trusted Christ, he started through this discipleship study. He was baptized. He brought his 2 children and his wife to Christ, and he was able to help baptize them in his church. So it's an exciting story for Steve. And they're involved in the youth and training and stuff now. So this next guy is kind of fun. Steve Deal's his name. It's like only Steves can come to Christ. That's not true. But anyways, he writes this. In my 40 years of ministry, I can honestly say that I have had more success than ever in seeing fruit that remains, and also fruit that is bearing fruit through using good soil training and resources. Now, that's what he wrote. We went ahead and wrote it up there, but why? What was the deal with Steve? Steve was an evangelist. He actually was in he was in Vietnam War, served over there, came back, became a policeman, served for many years as a policeman, and God got a hold of his life and changed him, and so he started preaching in the streets and all kinds of stuff. He's a great magician and ventriloquist. It's amazing the stuff that he does. But he'd go out there on the street and just be preaching and preaching and preaching. One day, he came to realize that a lot of what he was doing was some of this kind of quick, listen, you need to trust Christ now. And they didn't have much of the message at all. And he's almost the kind of guy that would grab you and shake you and say, you need to be saved right now, And what are people going to do? Okay. He got so that he was so upset. He one day said, I'm afraid. Now, I don't know that I believe this, but he said, I'm afraid I'm going to get to heaven and there's going to be a bunch of people in hell because of the way I shared the gospel. That's pretty sad. Like I said, I hope and pray that that's not the case. But it was just these quick little messages and leaving people, and he never saw them remain. And so he became a missionary in the Philippines. He's walking down the street in Manila, 20 million people, and he's walking down the street and he was upset and realizing this about his life. And he saw a picture, one of our pictures. You can go ahead and show other pictures of him. It was the foot crushing the serpent's head, and it resonated with him right away. He understood, and he walks in there, and it was called the Church Strengthening Ministries that he walked into. He said, where'd you get that picture? That is powerful. I want to know about it. And he said, well, that's good soil stuff. And Ariel Abadiano, who was our good soil representative in the Philippines, says, I can give you his number. So he got Ariel's number. He says, man, I got to talk to him. They got together at a restaurant and they talked. And Ariel explained what good soil is all about. And he said, listen, I'll give you this book. It's called Gaining Ground with Good Soil. I'll give you this book if you promise to read it. Oh, man, I'll read it. I'll be sure to read it. He read the thing in a day or two, was amazed at the change. He said, that is me. The book is a narrative about the good soil principles, but it's a story. And he said, that's me. I was doing it wrong. And I've got to know more about this. He flew back to the States. And he came to Harrisburg, said, I got to get some training. Well, the only thing we were trying, right then, as soon as he came back, is called The Roots of Faith. It's the Old Testament and New Testament stories. He took it. He said, I got to get some. And then he waited and he took the good soil training. It has turned his ministry around, big time. Here he's baptizing somebody. These folks are part of his team. Go ahead and go to the next one. This is kind of a cool slide over on that side. That's me. Ariella Badiano is beside me. Worked through the training with him, and he now trains other people. He worked with Steve. The first time I met Steve was back here in the States. But he worked with Steve and helped train him. The girl next to him, her name is Mitch. It's her name, Mitch. But worked with her and is training her. The girl next to her, she brought her to Christ, and then she brought her husband to Christ. And so it's kind of several generations there. But remember Steve was saying, people don't stick. I never see him around. Now he's seeing more and more ministry where people are staying, and they're part of the ministry and growing. And the church where Mitch is, with Steve and their team, is starting another church out where this gal and her husband live. And it's all using the story of hope and good soil ministry and stuff. This is what he calls his A-team here. Dun, 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 dun. Of course, Mitch is in there and several of these. Jesse Lewis is assistant pastor in his church, and they're starting another church. It's just exciting to see what God's doing using Steve and his group. I mentioned this. In Singapore, I'm training this, I always want to say young man, but he's older than I am, but trained him in good soil. He said, we got to do this. And so he translated into what we call simplified Chinese. What do they speak in China? Mandarin, right? But there's complicated and simplified or whatever. And so you translate the story of hope into what's called simplified Chinese. And he's training others, and it keeps spreading out. Like you said, when I saw him last time, he said 2,700 Asian leaders have been trained through his ministry, not anything to do with me. And they're spreading across China and training people. Go ahead and go to the next one. This guy, I don't know him, and I won't even get into his story, but it's on the Good Soil website if you want to check it out. He's a World War II veteran. He was an atheist, didn't believe a thing, and yet, as he went through the story of hope, he came to Christ as Savior as well. This is Lourdes. This is not during coronavirus, by the way. I was going to say something. What's that?
She had a cold that day.
Yeah. Lourdes, here on this side, Lourdes is a Filipina who went to Thailand as a missionary 61 years ago. 61 years ago. And serving there in a tremendous way, has a huge team built around her. She went as a single missionary. She's married now. She got married at what? I think older than that. I think closer. Yeah, anyways. She's married and they're serving there together. But she wanted us to come and give the training to her team that works in prisons and churches and things. So we did. And they're in Thailand. We're giving this training. And during the training, we practice, right? We have an activity where they have to take the story of hope and walk somebody through and different activities like that. The woman with her is a pastor's wife in Thailand. But as Lourdes walked through this practice with her, she came to Christ. She had never truly trusted Christ as Savior, even though she was a pastor's wife. It happened right there in the seminar. What do we got here? And then this, just another one. There's tons of stories on the Good Soil website. If you go to goodsoil.com and then the blog up at the top, you click on it, and there's a lot of these stories. But talib is the word for disciple, and that's his real name, but he's a father that came to be a true disciple of Jesus through the ministry. So I just want to get some of those out there just so you can know about him. But is he still changing lives today? Yeah, he is. Really all over the world, because there's no other name among men by which we must be saved. It's the name of Jesus that saves. But we have to give them enough so that they truly get it, right? We've got to share enough, and so that's why we need to go to the Old Testament. I was reading a book this past week. It's called Rediscovering the Scandal of the Cross. It's a great book, but it shows that there's so much in the Old Testament that sometimes we gloss over, we run past it, and then we get to the New Testament. Really, we've got to share what it's all about. Why does anybody have to trust in Jesus anyway? Why did he come? Right? And we talk about sacrifice, and that's a scandal of the cross. I mean, when you realize, has anybody seen a crucifixion? Is that used today? I mean, it doesn't even enter our heads how that works. But we have to get the basics and help people to really understand some of the Old Testament, the whys of that kind of thing. So that's what we try to do. But it's exciting to see Jesus still changing lives. And there's a challenge for us to be involved in that as well. I'm going to just share, this is just a 4-minute little clip. You may have seen it, but it's kind of fun and gives you an idea of what good soil training is like.
We all want to share our faith effectively, right?
Right.
Who doesn't?
But isn't that the pastor's job?
Please, turn in your Bibles.
Or the missionaries?
Natives!
Nope. Jesus expects us all to share. All of us.
Everyone.
Everyone?
Yep, everyone.
But how do you do it?
Is there anything more difficult?
Anything more frustrating than not knowing how to do something you're supposed to?
But here's the thing, you don't have to be frustrated.
Really? Introducing the Good Soil Seminar.
Seminar?
One of those things where you get caught up on your sleep.
And your emails.
Nope. Good Soil is a fresh, new,
hands-on,
participatory,
Exciting!
participatory,
interactive,
Bible-based way to learn how to share your faith.
and together,
Together.
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 You can learn to share your faith.
Good Soil is not your average seminar.
It's more than a seminar.
it's more than just a workshop.
At Good Soil, you'll have fun interacting with people like you.
Like me.
As you learn how to effectively share your faith in this diverse world,
Good Soil will not only challenge your approach to sharing your faith,
it will change it.
Good Soil taught me how to share God's redemptive story as He revealed it from Genesis to Revelation.
I've pastored for years, but always struggled with evangelism.
I struggle.
I struggle too.
But Good Soil taught me how to be effective in my witness.
Being effective.
Being understood.
That's what's important.
But there are so many religions.
So many ways that people look at the world.
So many ways that people approach life.
How do you deal with that?
At Good Soil, I learned what worldview noise is and how it can distort my message.
I learned how to use God's Word to break through worldview noise distortion.
So people understand the good news.
So they get it.
As if they put the pieces of a puzzle together.
And truly get it.
I learned how to use the story of hope
The story of hope.
The story of hope.
to help people understand God's story of redemption.
I've heard there's even an app. Can you help me find it?
And check this out, the pictures,
The summary statements,
The Bible stories and studies.
All work together to help you
Help them.
Put the pieces together.
So they understand the good news.
So sharing your faith,
sharing your faith.
Is not so hard after all.
Nope, it's really not that bad.
Good soil made it easy.
And I love to see the lights come on as people put the pieces together.
So, what are you waiting for?
Here's what you need to do.
log on now.
Yep, now. Right now.
Go to goodsoil.com.
You learn.
You practice.
You share your faith.
It's fun and it's easy.
Good soil.
It's participatory.
Good soil.
You get tools to help you
Tell God's redemptive story from beginning to end.
Good soil.
Sign up today.
Sign up today.
Sign up today.
Goodsoil.com.
Oh, that came right up, didn't it? We talked about that, right? Bible content and context. We talked about it a little bit out there. But the context really is important for people to really get it. If they don't have some of that stuff in the Old Testament, it's really hard. Well, I did say that if you came today, you'd get to know the other key thing. Was anybody worried about that? Were you thinking, hey, he hasn't mentioned that yet? Nope. Nobody cared. No. Here it is, though. I'm just listening. But this is another key thing that we deal with. We need to initiate conversations that may become redemptive relationships. We can have all this stuff in our head and realize, wow, this is important. They got to know this and they got to know this and that. But if we don't start, if we never open our mouths and start to share, I'll guarantee you, you're not going to bring them to Christ, right? We need to initiate those conversations. And we don't have to jump right into the Bible. And we have some training on how to do this kind of thing, but we just need to start. We have neighbors that are from, they always struggle because they're from Bhutan, but they came from Nepal, okay? So they're Bhutanese, but they lived in Nepal, and now they speak Nepali, and they came over to the States. And they're way different from us, right? And I don't know Nepali. I'm kind of starting to learn Nepali. Have you ever seen that scroll? It is weird. But I'm playing around with it just to show interest with these people, you know? And they're like, wow, you want to learn Nepali? Yeah, I'd like to. So it's that kind of thing. We're talking and just starting conversations and seeing where we can go. You have to initiate a conversation. It could become a redemptive relationship. It could grow. You could be able to share the gospel. And that's what it's all about. So what I'd like to do is just challenge you about one prayer request. Well, I should tell you this real quick story because you may not realize, you know, all this COVID-19 and everything. In our home church, it's not where the church that sent us out, but where we're living in Harrisburg, we started having services just like you in March and April and May online, right? Just looking at a screen. But the thing is, our pastor said, well, our kids aren't getting any Sunday school or anything like that. And what are we going to do? And so he says, Gill, what are we going to do? Okay. So what we did is we have the Story of Hope Kids. It's the story of hope, but for kids. And we got every one of our kids in the church, Story of Hope Kids. We also have a little thumb drive thing that has the stories recorded professionally. Really nice, really fun to listen to. And so we got one of those for every family. And what we did for 2 months to give them Sunday school, and the other thing was, how many of people in your church that never wanted to be a homeschooler are now homeschooling? Some of you are doing that, right? And so what are we going to do? How are we going to help with that? And what about Bible class and all that stuff? So we did this thing. We gave them that. And so what we did is on Mondays and Thursdays, I got on Facebook Live, and I did a lesson from the Story of Hope Kids. They had their books open, and I do special quizzes where they shout out. Well, if they shout out, I can't hear them, right? But they'd shout out the answer, and then Mom or Dad would type it in, and we'd do this kind of thing on Monday and Thursday. On Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, Mom or Dad did one of the events with the kids. And we went all the way through the story of hope doing that. Well, I mentioned our neighbor. He said, hey, I saw that thing you're doing. That's pretty cool. I said, what? On Facebook. And I said, oh, I had been, since we started and we weren't going to church, I've been playing a song every Sunday. I would, and Denise would record it, and we made our whole house a studio and all that kind of thing, our living room. And so I said, oh, the horn. I said, no, that thing where you're teaching. He'd gone on Facebook, he saw us doing that. He said, yeah, I shared that with my friends. So his Nepalese guy is sharing the Story of Hope kids with other Nepalese. So it's kind of a cool thing. But we did that, and it was a way that our kids could learn. And actually then we had people in Jakarta and people in the Philippines and in Ecuador. Those are 3 other countries that I know of that they were getting on and using it and learning. So even during COVID-19 stuff, we were able to continue. But we do want to get back to training. We're doing some training in the office. We did a session called Essential Mission Components in July, where, you can't have more than 25 people in a room now, right? And so we have this big training room, and it divides into actually 2 or 3 parts. So we divided in 2, and we had 25 here, and we had 25 in the back, right? And so we had 4 tables up front, we had 3 tables in the back, and so I'd say, okay, table 7, what's the answer? And we'd hear table 7 coming through the speakers because they had a mic. We couldn't see table 7, but we did the training, and it worked well. And they'd get up and go to the flip charts. When they go into flip charts, they had to put their masks on, and we did all that kind of thing. When they were seated, instead of sitting a round table with 5 or 6 people, we had pods. We have half rounds, and they were made in such a way that they could be socially distanced. And so when they're seated, they could sit there and they could talk, they didn't have their mask on. When they got up and went to flip charts, they had to use their masks. So it worked really well. The back, both rooms empty out into the foyer where you get your food and then go eat, right? Well, that'd have the foyer with more than 25 people at once. So we couldn't do that. So what we did was the back would go to lunch first. So they'd go and start getting their food. The front room had to go down the stairs, go downstairs to go to the restroom. They'd go to the restroom, come back up around, no mixing, right? And then when that group was out of the foyer where they got their food, then the next group could go. Really worked hard at that. We were sterilizing all the time, and it worked. And nobody got COVID-19. So we're back to training some. And here's the thing I want you to pray about. In October, we're having our normal good soil training. Because that went well in July, we're going to do it the same way. Divide the rooms like that and carry out all those procedures. But we have this thing, we're launching a new book. It's called Gaining Ground as a Truly Evangelistic Church. We've seen, like you've probably seen, lots and lots of folks aren't really being evangelistic. They're not sharing the gospel. And so with this new book, we're having a new piece with the training. There's a 2-day basic, so it'll be Monday and Tuesday be training for good soil. And then on Wednesday is what we call trainer certification. And during that trainer certification, we're going to add some new material that will help a church figure that whole thing out, be truly evangelistic, and we're going to be starting a network where people can get together and encourage one another and this kind of thing. That's what I want you to pray about. The launch of this book and the launch of this new piece of training. Because what we're doing is every pastor, every senior pastor that brings at least 2 other people with him, and he can bring 4 or 5 or 6, but the senior pastor brings at least 2 people, they'll all come for free to the training. Because we really want to help these folks to get back to really being evangelistic as a church. So if you'd pray about that, we'd really appreciate it. We're launching it, we're getting the word out. You may spread the word. Maybe you'll have 2 or 3 or 6 come from this church. Bring 10. They can all come for free. Somebody's donated money to make this happen, so you don't have to worry. I'm not paying for it. And we keep people in our house, you know, whenever we have training, we're always full in the house. And we figure out social distancing as well if we need to. So be praying about that. Truly evangelistic church and how we can launch this and be effective. Right? So thanks for coming in here. I appreciate it. And I'm not sure if you want to close, Ken, or how we do it.
Yeah, actually, people have any questions? Gil?
Or Denise. You can ask her.
Or Donna?
Or Donna. How was Denise as a kid? Yes.
I was gonna ask, like, when is your next training for that? I mean, like, you just can't order the book, right? Like, you can't go
Right.
to goodsoil.com and order the book. You need to go to the training first before you can.
Right. This training that we're talking about will be October 12 and 13 and 14. 12, 13, 14. And now you can get a lot, if you go to www.goodsoil.com, there's lots of materials, you know, The Story of Hope, The Way to Joy, different books are available. You can order online. But this training will be October 12th to 14th.
And where is that?
It's in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania, okay.
Yeah. But listen, like I said, we get deals with the local hotels, and they pay an extremely lower price than everybody else, so that's a nice thing. But if you're, you know, if you call us or you let us know, if you're first to get in touch with us, you stay with us for free. So just saying, that's available too. Does that answer your question pretty much?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Great.
So, are you still involved with taking these trainings on the road as you have in the past, and what's that to?
Yes, however, you know, I think just now we'd be returning from South Africa, and that got canceled. It was gonna be in 3 major cities in South Africa, we had to cancel that whole thing. We were gonna be in Portugal in November, so a lot of trainings have been canceled, but we are starting to take new trips. I'm
What's
starting
that
to.
entail? What does someone do to make that happen?
Overseas or in the States? Or
Right here.
anything. Yeah, well, you just call or write and we talk, and we start from there. But generally, if we're gonna go out to a church in the States, we'd like to see if we can't get at least 30 people, you know. But what a lot of times happens, they'll have, a church will have neighboring churches, you know, all come together, and they can easily get to 30. Yeah, but, yeah, and that's another thing. You know Randy Southwell? Some of you may know Randy. He actually lived here when they were in Brazil. One year they spent a furlough here. And if you saw him, you might recognize him. But Randy lives in Grand Rapids, and he can do some training as well. Yeah. Good question.
How long are you here for?
It'll be, when we leave, it'll be 4 weeks, Lord willing.
I mean, when?
What's that?
When do you actually, I don't.
Yeah,
I've been
we're
here
gonna
too
be
long.
next Sunday.
Okay.
Next Sunday we'll be here and then take off. Hit the road. Then it'll have been 4 weeks. But, yeah.
I don't know if everyone knows Donna and the connection, just because there's so many other people.
Right. Well, Donna Watson is Denise Watson Thomas's mother. Yeah. Denise grew up in this church and went up. Yeah. So she actually, yeah, she may be the person in the church the longest that's still living. That makes sense? Not the oldest member, but in a sense that'd be the oldest. She's been here a long, long time.
You were in the cradle roll, wasn't
You were in the cradle roll. Yeah. That's a while ago. It's at least 50 years ago, right?